Good of you to join us at this hour. I'm Daniel Che here to provide you with the latest. North Korea has once again attempted to launch a ballistic missile and failed. The latest test was detected Saturday afternoon, marking the regime's 7th test this year, and it comes less than a week before key talks between Seoul and Washington's foreign and defense ministers. Kwon Jang-ho has our top story.
At around 12:30 p.m. Korea time on Saturday, North Korea attempted to launch a single Musudan intermediate-range ballistic missile. According to U.S. Strategic Command, the launch was detected near the northwestern city of Kusong, but it apparently failed shortly after takeoff. It's the 7th Musudan missile to have been tested this year alone. Only one of them has been successful. Seoul strongly condemned Saturday's launch, stressing that it was yet another violation of UN sanctions.
This latest provocation is an attack on the UN's authority. This reckless behavior will only strengthen the resolve of the international community to increase pressure and sanctions on the regime. We must make Pyongyang realize that such actions will only make it more isolated and will bring more economic difficulties.
The launch is thought to be a reaction to the joint South Korea-US naval drills that concluded on Saturday, as well as a comment made earlier this week by Daniel Russell, the US Assistant Secretary of State for East Asian and Pacific Affairs, who said if North Korean leader Kim Jong-un were to carry out a nuclear attack, US retaliation would mean he would immediately die. Pyongyang called the statement a hostile act, hurting the dignity of the regime's leadership and going beyond the limits of tolerance. South Korean US defense and foreign ministers are set to meet in Washington next week to discuss Pyongyang's 5th nuclear test, which occurred last month. But now this latest missile launch is also set to be another topic on the table. Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
President Park Geun-hye has once again condemned Pyongyang's obsession with its nuclear and missile programs at the expense of its people who are suffering from flood damage and economic difficulties. In the video message shared at an event for South Korean residents of North Korean origin, she said South Korean government will closely coordinate with the international community to put an end to Pyongyang's reign of terror, and Seoul will not succumb to nor compromise with the communist state's tyranny. The president vowed all-out efforts for the peaceful reunification of the two Koreas so people can once again set foot in their hometowns. A high-profile North Korean defector exposed a part of the regime's plans to upgrade its nuclear capabilities. Tae-yong-ho, the communist state's former ambassador to London, says Pyongyang was looking to bribe a UK intelligence officer £1 million to obtain British nuclear secrets. According to the UK newspaper Sunday Express, the former diplomat revealed the plot in an intelligence debriefing after he defected, saying the pressure to carry out the order was the reason he decided to abandon the regime. Tae reportedly told his superiors it's an impossible mission, but was warned failure would mean the end of his career. Tae eventually contacted a British intelligence officer he met playing golf and revealed his intention to defect. Chinese President Xi Jinping and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin met on the sidelines of the annual BRICS summit this weekend and vowed to boost cooperation on a number of issues. The two leaders also had an in-depth exchange of views on the Korean Peninsula situation. They agreed to maintain close communication and coordination to jointly safeguard peace and stability in Northeast Asia. But according to the China Daily, while they expressed concern over North Korea's continued nuclear and missile provocations, Xi and Putin once again reportedly expressed opposition to intensified sanctions against the regime and to the deployment of the U.S. missile defense system THAAD to South Korea. Tension has been rising between Beijing and Seoul over a recent clash between the Korean Coast Guard and Chinese illegal fishing boats. As a result, China abruptly called off plans to join Korea in monitoring the West Sea for such activities. Kim Hye-sung has more on the impulsive cancellation that comes just days before the scheduled joint operation.
Beijing has cancelled plans with Seoul this coming week to jointly patrol the sea between Korea and China. According to Korea's Ministry of Maritime Affairs and Fisheries, Seoul and Beijing were planning to have joint crews monitor activity in their respective fishing waters for 5 days starting Wednesday. But the ministry said China on Friday asked to cancel the inspection. Since 2005, Korea and China have held regular joint patrols of illegal fishing boats in the West Sea to help raise awareness of and crack down on illegal fishing. This marks the second time China's cancelled the patrol. The last time was 2 years ago when a crew member on a Chinese boat fishing in Korean waters was killed by the Korean Coast Guard after threatening the Korean officers with violence. Tensions have risen again between Seoul and Beijing over poaching after 2 Chinese fishing vessels sank a speedboat belonging to the Korean Coast Guard on October 7th. Following the incident, Seoul said it would allow its Coast Guard officers to use weapons like onboard cannon and handguns in response to increasing violence from Chinese fishing crews, while Beijing has warned Seoul to refrain from abusing its power. Korea's Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries said it will consider whether it should push for future joint patrols or not. Kim Hae-sung, Arirang News.
The South Korean government announced on Sunday it plans to designate 3 more special disaster zones: Yangsan City in Gyeongsang-namdo Province, all of Jeju Island, and Busan's Saha-gu district. All areas hardest hit by Typhoon Chaba, which killed at least 7 people and caused millions of dollars in property damage. With special disaster zone status, those areas will be entitled to disaster relief from the central government, as well as tax benefits and lower utility fees for residents. Prior to that, the northern part of Ulsan City and Uljugun County, which saw severe flooding from the typhoon, were designated as special disaster zones as of October 10th. The Korean won has topped the list of 27 currencies in terms of its real effective exchange rate. According to the Bank for International Settlements, as of late August, the Korean currency had risen 4.1% since June to 118.5. The trend could hurt Korea's exports, as the nation will lose its edge in price competitiveness. While the government could theoretically do something to cushion the fall, the U.S. Treasury Department has urged Korea and 5 other economies on the so-called monitoring list to limit foreign exchange intervention to cases of disorder in the market. The U.S. did, however, encourage further steps to support domestic demand, including more robust use of fiscal policy, and highlighted the need for increased transparency of foreign exchange operations. As Korea's population gets older, the employment rate for these silver citizens has hit a record high. According to a report by the Ministry of Employment and Labor, the number of people 50 and older who are working has risen to 9.6 million, accounting for 37% of the total employed population. Among seniors, 55% are working, the highest rate on record. Close to 80% of them did not graduate from high school, but the percentage of highly educated workers aged 50 and up is growing. The Labor Ministry vows to push with reforms in the labor market to create more suitable jobs for this growing sector of the Korean population. 1,020 more free Wi-Fi hotspots will be available for the Korean public by next year. According to the Ministry of Science, ICT and Future Planning on Sunday, the plan is aimed at closing the internet access gap between income groups and also between the different regions of the country. The ministry plans to work with the nation's internet service providers to set up the hotspots at public facilities, such as traditional markets and community centers. With the additions, the nation's total number of public Wi-Fi hotspots will come to around 13,300. A growing number of people in Korea are choosing a minimalist lifestyle these days, a new trend that is possibly a strong reaction to the prevailing tendency toward excessive consumption in Korean society. Hwang Ho-jun explains why less is more.
Many working women come home at the end of the day, only to spend their free time on household chores. That's why this teacher, wife, mother, and dog owner decided to get rid of everything but the essentials in her home. She started with the piles of clothes she had not been wearing for years, then moved on to her flower pots and the rest. In just 1 month, she was able to get rid of about 500 items that she either tossed, donated, or gave away. Now it's been 3 years, and she says she's found happiness from getting rid of useless items and focusing more on things she cares about.
My criteria for happiness have changed. Before, I wanted to own everything other people had and found happiness in buying new things. Now, I like sharing.
This year, Tens of thousands of Koreans have joined in the movement to declutter their homes and live a more minimalist lifestyle. One online community devoted to decluttering has over 45,000 registered users, and more books on the subject are being published. Experts say the trend seems like an effort to find an alternative to the tendency toward excessive consumption, with more people thinking about the idea of responsible consumption.
It seems as though we're moving from an era of luxury to one of value. It's a combination of self-reflection on consumerism and an emphasis on various methods of ethical consumption.
Although many people remain skeptical that the trend will seep into the mainstream, it has already encouraged more people to pair their belongings so they can focus on finding new ways to bring meaning and happiness into their lives. Hwang Ho-jun, Arirang News.
Let's take a quick look at the weather before we go. We've had a very wet Sunday here in Korea. At the start of the week, you will wake up to mostly cloudy skies if you're here in the nation. Temperature-wise, Seoul starts at 14, Gwangju 16, and Jeju 20 degrees Celsius. The mercury will then rise all the way up to 22 in the capital, 24 in both the City of Lights and the southernmost resort island. And now let's check out the weather conditions in your neck of the woods and around the world. And that brings us to the end of this hour's newscast. As always, thank you for watching.